The AI boom is officially upon us. The question is, are we entering a bust? So we're going to be talking about AI, and the data center is eating all of the electricity, taking it from you and me and from your poor, innocent, sweet babies, and shipping it off to make AI porn or something terrible. That's what I'm reading in the news anyways. What's going on, Kyle?
Before we get into it, make sure to like this video. It helps us out. We'd really appreciate it. You'll get warm hugs from us.
Feed the AI algorithm.
Feed the algorithm, because we are nothing but slaves to the algorithm. And therefore, we are going to be nothing but bullish on AI today.
We want it to like us.
We're going to continue this boom forward.
This episode is brought to you by Revved Up Promo, the official apparel partner of Human Reaction. Revved Up is a premier full-service shop specializing in laser engraving, screen printing, and embroidery. Not only are they now making all of our apparel right down the road from us, they can do the same for your brand and ship it to you anywhere in the world. Revved Up helps you navigate the extensive universe of merch options and uses state-of-the-art techniques to showcase your brand in its very best light. So if you want to support our show and our generous sponsor, you can now do so by buying our merch and by turning to Revved Up Promo for your own custom apparel needs. Reach them at revveduppromo.com. That's with 2 V's and 2 P's, or just check the show notes for a link.
Yeah, so with the AI, I guess I was looking at some numbers as we were just kind of planning around this, and AI's really hit a critical mass on us right now. If we look at the numbers in comparison to what they used to be, according to Pew, in a recent study, 40 to 50% of U.S. adults are using AI tools weekly. If you just think about that from a year ago,
40 to 50%.
When we were kind of like, what's this ChatGPT thing?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's been around a little bit longer than that, right? Like, was it a year ago? Maybe 2 years ago.
It's been yeah.
I
feel like a year and a half maybe.
But the boomers aren't using it yet. That's the thing. That's the trick.
I feel like the boomers are starting to use it.
Wow. Okay.
My folks are starting to use it a lot more. But they're a little bit more tech savvy.
AI is kind of a fancy thing. First of all, it's 2 letters.
2 letters. 2 letters.
Yeah,
and data center spending has hit $200 billion this year so far.
Wow.
That's how much money is going into building these data centers, which has a lot of people in all sorts of tizzies.
Because that money could be going someplace else.
Money could always be going someplace else, Dave.
Yeah, right. So the question is, where would it go and who decides?
Argentina.
You should go to Argentina. That was the other video.
Bail them out. And also construction on the Stargate Initiative projects have begun too.
Ooh, the Stargate. That's the one where we go between dimensions and meet aliens?
That's Operation Stargate, the CIA. This is different.
I just wanted the sci-fi movie. That was good.
No, you're thinking Operation Stargate, which was about astral projection.
Yeah, oh, yes. But this is the Stargate Initiative.
This is the $500 billion coming in from OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and the likes. They're building up these giga centers.
So, and that's necessary. And just to catch everybody up a little bit here is why all this infrastructure is necessary is because you need compute. Fancy word, not fancy word, dumbed down word, I guess.
Kind of this fancy thing.
It's kind of this fancy thing for the currency of which your AI algorithm runs on, right? Your AI needs processing power, so it borrows that off the data centers. We need to build a lot more of it so we can scale AI, make it quicker, faster. And it turns out the more compute you use, the smarter it gets and the better it gets at all the things it can do. Mm-hmm. So if you want your AI taxi cabs everywhere so that you can drive the cost of taxis down to zero or very, very cheap, or your workplace or your ChatGPT or whatever, you want that to be affordable, you need lots of it.
Remember when Sam Altman put out that tweet saying how much money OpenAI was losing because people were saying please and thank you?
Yes.
It was millions of dollars a month were being lost because of how many people are just saying thank you, and then it has to generate a whole new thing, generate tokens for it. That's what the energy is for.
Yeah, right. Quit saying thank you.
It's for you to say please and thank you to the robot overlords.
Or just imagine one of the uses here being so one of the stories that also came around at the same time is that ChatGPT is now going to be going into the competing with Grok space. I don't know about you, but my Grok now has all the different modes attached to it that used to be just the exclusives Grok. Now my lower tier Grok subscription can now have access to it. So you can get your sensual mode and have an AI girlfriend. Is Grok.
That's in Grok now?
Yeah.
Because I know ChatGPT said like November or December,
they're going to implement like more adult like stuff, and then they're going to have a more kid specific ChatGPT, which I think actually is very wise.
Separate those out.
Yes,
100%.
yes, and just like yeah,
100%.
but no, my Grok now has.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. No, they're making it more industry or like consumer specific, which I think is wise. In fact, I think almost all internet would do better if it did this.
Yeah.
Like for example, I really wish I could just tell Instagram, I don't want to see some things. Like just quit sending me those things, and it would like listen to me and respond.
I think that would be well, and I think that's where a lot of it's going is much more fine tuning of algorithms using the language models in order to do that.
Yeah, so check it out. So now I have all these different voice modes. You can do meditation mode, story time, storyteller, assistant, therapist. And then we have sexy mode, 18 plus, motivation mode, 18 plus, conspiracy. I don't know what the conspiracy one is. Romantic,
conspiracy
argumentative. Mode. Yeah, I can argue with it. Yeah.
I argue with Grok all the time. I go back and forth with Grok.
So, and obviously,
I didn't realize there was a mode for that. I've just been using the standard mode to argue with.
Oh, yeah, right. You're like, argue with me, and it argues with you. Yeah, I mean, and that's like the voice mode specific. Oh, it's listening to me. Go away, Brock. Sorry. Stop it.
Go yourself.
Go fuck yourself.
They don't want to say please and thank you.
So yeah, we have all this, and now it is hitting the electrical markets and many other things that people were complaining about. But beyond like the social phenomena, right? You get the social phenomena like, oh no one's ever gonna have a girlfriend again because of AI, right? There's a Futurama episode about that, if I remember right. Don't have a robot girlfriend.
Way ahead of their time.
Yeah, right. And then and you also have this question like, are we entering like an investment bubble, which I think is a very real probability.
Well, I mean, with everything, there's going to be a bubble. Like anytime there's large scale narrative stuff, you should expect a bubble to be happening in it.
I saw something like this. A bubble is when smart rich people think something's really cool. Like that. Like the .com bubble is an example of that. Like they're like, wow, the internet's really cool. Pets.com. You can totally order a pet over the internet.
It's true. And, well, and because like now every company is putting like AI in front of their name. It's just like AI, whatever. So like everything's an AI company now. We're gonna be in the bubble phase. A lot of these things are gonna be failures. There's gonna be like certain champions that rise to the top. We've already seen some of them, right?
But Kyle, that's why capitalism is bad, because it does bubbles. It overinvests. It's not smart enough to know how much to invest.
Yeah, that's why. Where in the opposing system, what you might expect would be, we're just going to choose one thing, and that thing is going to probably fail, and then everything collapses, instead of having a bunch of safety boats to go to the things that don't collapse.
Well,
right?
and people are so in love with China right now, and the very country that has everything directed by banks, localized banks that are run by governors and party members, that then overinvest all the times in all kinds of stuff. Like they or do that sort of thing all the time. In fact, they haven't. This is overblown, but it's still a phenomenon. It's not a huge phenomenon, but it's a real problem in China. They build things they don't need all the time.
Just like cities.
Yeah, like empty ghost cities.
They just have random cities. It was like, oh, eventually we'll need it.
Yeah, because GDP go up, and that means good, right? That kind of central planning has its errors too. The question is like, are they making errors with your money or their own money? And to what degree are we doing that? Now, credit to the Trump administration. So far, like Project Stargate, it was all done with private capital, correct?
Yeah.
So this stock is not your money, but it is making up a large amount of the stock increase this year.
Yeah, the Stargate initiative was interesting from the government standpoint, because it was just kind of like Trump just being like, I approve. Like that. Like that's kind of what it was. It's like, but it was also symbolic of like, hey, we're going to do all this deregulation stuff, and we're going to be amping up the energy sector through Chris Wright's work as Secretary of Energy, and like through Doug Burgum in the Interior. They're going to be really important for the AI stuff. So like, just know the government has your back in the sense of we're going to be deregulating all the barriers that exist in your way, making it so that this investment's worthwhile. Like that's kind of what the symbolic.
That's what the promise was. The question is, have they delivered? And I think that's what a lot of the dialogue has to be from here, specifically on the energy side. Well,
a lot of stuff on the energy side, it seems like the states are pushing back on a lot of the data center areas.
It's a bit of both. It's complicated, right? Because you have in energy, you have generation, transmission, and then your end receiver, right? You're the person who's consuming the energy. And if you look at that, the number one barrier I don't know about every state. Lots of states, it's 50 different states with 50 different rules. And then you have regional transmission organizations, RTOs, that then also have their major role in this and what are their incentives and that sort of thing. You have large monopolies that are politically governed by public service commissions or public service unions and stuff like that are supposed to act as the check on the monopoly that's governed, gets its government monopoly grant from the government. You can't start your own utility. Sorry. You can create your own microgrid, and we're seeing that start to come up in the AI space a lot. But this sort of how to respond, those are ossified, fossilized like institutions that have been around for 50, 60 years. They've never had to compete. They've never been asked, hey, can you just double transmission capacity in a year? No, they don't do that. That's not what the process is set up for. The process is set up to comply with NEPA. The process is set up to comply with FERC. FERC is one of the major barriers in the space, and that's a federal regulation on energy transmission. So, it's funny because one of my clients is working in the energy industry and energy tech stuff. So full disclosure, but I'm talking to these energy transmission and generation companies, and they say like, "Oh, this is awesome! I love what you're doing in Montana. What are you going to do about FERC?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a Fed. I mean, I can't do anything because that's their number one concern. So if they can remove FERC as one of the major barriers, then you have a real opportunity for some
What
scale.
exactly is FERC?
FERC is I can't remember what it stands for. I'm gonna get that up.
Federal Energy something or other?
Yeah, Regulatory Commission, and it's all of their rules on the transmission and generation of electricity, mostly focused on the transmission side of it. But they also regulate hydro, natural gas, like all the market oversight stuff. That is one of the major barriers. So they are putting out new FERC findings and things like that to try to drive this in the Trump direction. But none of this can move as fast as the tech, right? And that's really what we're seeing. So as many people as you'll find. Stories come out this week that's like, oh, Virginia has this huge bloom in energy costs. Well, that's because, we need data centers and the technology is requiring that and people's consuming is demanding it, but you can't build the generation fast enough to support it on the grid. So that's pushing a lot of companies into building their own grids functionally.
Yeah, Northern Virginia has what's called Data Center Alley. And apparently that whole section in Northern Virginia is... it rivals the power of Japan's total energy use is like just that section of Virginia.
Wow.
Which in Virginia, you're seeing a lot of protests happening because this is creating I saw a number of 15% rate hikes on utility costs.
Wow.
In Virginia. So, and the locals themselves are like, we're subsidizing tech giants. Like that's the...
Yeah, but that's not subsidy, right? It's like, it's the same sense in which, okay, so if you're a family, right, and you have another kid, and your grocery bill goes up. That's not subsidizing the kid, right? That's like there's more demand for food in the household. There's more demand.
I think it's more like subsidizing is not the technical correct word, but what they're looking at it is you have all these major players coming out and it's making my utilities go up because you're on my grid now.
But it's the same way. Okay, so if you blow that same example up into any other industry, there's more demand for a thing that makes the price go up. Now, what happens when prices go up? More suppliers enter the market to take advantage of the higher market price. So like this is the thing that happens in market economy. And what's so crazy is like people saying, oh, well, we need to pass bills. I think they did in Oregon. I didn't actually get to confirm that. That require AI companies to build their own power generation, thus slowing down AI and not being able to pull off the grid. That might be reasonable in some cases, specifically when it comes to grid stability questions, when you have very old grids. But also, what happened to the idea that the government's job is to service the flourishing of the people? Meaning like the government's job is to make sure that people have access to the things that they need, including data centers and corporations, to be able to service people's needs. Right. So if you establish a monopoly and then put it in charge of the energy system and then it fails to adjust to new realities, that's on the government, not on the energy company or on the data center company, in my opinion. Right. The government is failing us by predicting future and then not adjusting to it.
Yeah, inaccurately predicting the future.
I mean, we've had 3 years now of these stories
putting all these barriers in the way that make because like what we don't need less data centers, we need more energy.
Yes.
Like that's the thing.
Yes.
So, and that's the unfortunate, because you have all these like NIMBY groups and everything that are trying to be like, trying to stop the data centers from being built because of various reasons. But the problem that especially when we're talking about the utility rate hikes that are happening, it's just like, no, we need more free flowing energy to be had. We need to be able to drill, baby, drill, as Trump would say.
Well, or do a lot of other range of things. And like I think a valid criticism is one of the easier ways to scale energy is when you have very cheap deployment, and it can be built really quickly. Right. So solar panels can be implemented really, really quickly. Right. You can basically just take them off a shelf, put them on a structure, and then start producing energy. Now it's inclement, meaning it doesn't happen at night. I think some Democrat says like, oh no, you can totally get solar power at night. I don't know what happened there. I just saw it. It came in, it came out, but whatever. But you connect that to batteries, and then you can have consistent. Now, can you get enough out of that? That's up to the data center to decide, right? But when it comes to other ways that you can fund things that aren't data centers using those, we're now kind of creating a kind of perverse incentive because we're saying we're going to, incentivize some forms of energy and not others, when what we really need when we have this huge tidal wave of incoming demand is as flexible a system as we can to input more electrons onto the grid. And unfortunately, we're not actually getting that if we have the narrower view of, well, the only thing that is good is natural gas.
Well, part of the reason why the demand for so much more data centers that need to be had is because previously all of our data centers were basically just bogged down by like cloud streaming Netflix. Like that was pretty much the primary use case of all these data centers in the past. But now, because part of the reason why I said up front of like 50% of adults are using these AI products now is like that's how fast things happen super quickly right now. And just to give a perspective, a single of these large data centers uses about the power of 100,000 homes.
Wow.
Which that's how much we're talking about. We need these right now. And so the more that are coming up, that's why you would expect to have brownouts and rate hikes to go up, is just because we're not satisfying the demand that exists now. And like it's more of a supply side issue than it is a demand issue. Like there's a lot of people that want to reduce the demand by, obliterating all the data centers or something like that. A lot of people want to do that, but it's just like, no, let's just be more abundant with our energy supply. Like we have all this energy that we just aren't using, like where we could be activating, but we're just not doing that anymore. We need to build out the infrastructure that's necessary for that.
Right. So that's why many of these grids are going towards like a little microgrid, meaning a microgrid is where you build your own energy production, like usually partnering with another company that does that, and then just tying your single source into that. Now that's actually not great from the market perspective, because if for whatever reason you need flexibility, you want that actually tied into the rest of the grid, because that provides you more flexibility given the cases of a shutdown or a disaster or something like that. So we're actually creating the incentives for more microgrids not being tied into the overall grid, and thus making our grid less anti-fragile and more rigid. By doing that. So, for example, Elon Musk XAI, they use gas turbines at its Colossus data center in Memphis, and that's a little bit of a blending. But the OpenAI Oracle one for Project Stargate is constructing a gas fire power plant, which will only serve that in West Texas. Equinix is over a dozen U.S. data centers are now powered by fuel cells and solar panels, with more coming. So, that's also another one of the alternatives. And then Meta has an Ohio data center complex with a $1.6 billion on-site natural gas generation plant built by the company Williams. So like these are becoming bigger projects as a result of that, right? Rather than, and it doesn't always make sense to build your power grid right next to your data center, right? That might not work in the geometry of the area you're talking about. So by pushing those people off grid, you're actually creating some other perverse incentives as well. Rather than allowing the grid to kind of be more visualized, thinking of it more visualized like a marketplace where you're inputting and outputting off the market, think of the grid more like roads that we're moving, buses and cars through. Rather than expanding the road, what we're doing is we're building cul-de-sacs. And that has advantages in the short run, but long term might actually play out in negative consequences where it's difficult to foresee.
Another area is water. Water is a big problem with these right now. The cooling servers just evaporate millions of gallons of water per day. And what's been showing up is you have places like Georgia and Oregon that are citing well contamination that's happening from the
Really?
data centers.
What would go from the data center into the well though?
Well, it's one of those things where I don't know how, like those are the claims that are being made. I don't know how valid the claims are.
Right.
These are kind of the protests that are emerging are using that as a claim.
It's like rerunning the fracking playbook. Okay.
I'm kind of suspecting that, but I don't know. I don't know it too deeply. But it was something that popped up in front of me when I looked into it, and I didn't look into it too deeply.
Well, water rights is really important for many states, and most of our water right law is very old, so it doesn't always work well with new technologies and things coming in. That said, if you're purchasing the water right along with the property, which is the process that we've established for millennia now, you have a right to it that does take from other people, but that is part of the right to use the water. So if you need to make adjustments at the water right level, that's appropriate for your state governments to be doing. And that there might be tangible cases of that, specifically in particularly a water scarce area. But where these are being built is like Virginia and Oregon, and Texas. Like Texas has water problems, but they have an ocean there. They can salinate. So I don't really understand
one of the
why
big
it's
problems that I have seen is that Arizona is one of the big problems. Data centers in Arizona consume about 5% of the state's water, and they already have drought issues.
Wow. Why would you build in Arizona? That's like the worst place you could build. Like the whole object is keep it cold.
Google has like in Mesa, they have a major data center. Like Mesa has a lot of these big data centers there. And Phoenix was rationing water supplies, prioritizing the data centers over farms, and it created a big
Classic.
I know. Like I have some ties to Arizona.
That was a political decision too.
Yeah, I have some ties to Arizona, and I always hear that all the time. Is that Arizona just has these massive, and there's been tons of demand of like people moving into Arizona. So like, and their water supply has not increased in any way.
Yeah.
So there's already droughts coming in from the migration of people into Arizona, but then pair on top of that the data centers, and there's water rationing that's happening because of it.
And so that kind of shows like the lack of price mechanism on water with our current water rights systems. It depends on where you're at. Different states have different water. The water rights are incredibly complicated, but the best ones usually, kind of when you're taking from it, you have to pay in, or it's particularly costly for the water right for the next water title to be given for that purpose, so that you don't have those secondary order effects. But usually that's a political decision. Usually it's a politics to decide, we're going to preference one group over the other on that.
The other major backlash that I'm seeing is it's a lot of these like local protests. Particularly, I saw Virginia and Texas had a lot of this, but a lot of it is just citing things like noise pollution and light pollution and disrupting property values. There's like these NIMBY movements that are popping up all over the place because of it.
Yeah, I can understand the complaint. I guess. Well, wait. Why does a data center have noise?
I guess Amazon. Like the fans? Apparently, Amazon had an expansion that was blocked by Virginia residents because of zoning. Like they're using zoning lawsuits and stuff like that, which is what you would expect in that. But those are the other concerns. So it's like energy, noise and light pollution, property value stuff, and then the water wars. Those are kind of like the three primary concerns I'm seeing with the data centers.
Beyond that, and then the increase in the price of where they're tying into the grid and therefore creating.
Which I'm kind of roping in with like the energy side. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So the boom part of it, we hadn't really unpacked that too far. We got this tweet from Sagar again. I bring up Sagar again because I love that guy. He's great. But he's. What you said you found where this was from?
No, you would supply this to me, but like it's one of those things where I wouldn't be surprised. It's as part of the boom because everybody's kind of talking about it being a boom right now. He's saying 40% of U.S. GDP growth this year is AI. AI companies account for 80% of gains in the U.S. stocks in 2025, which that makes sense to me because when I'm thinking about like the Mag 7 and like NVIDIA and how far that's risen right now. That seems like the growth in the stock market probably largely comes from that.
Yeah, but that does demonstrate bubble, right? When you got everything going into one singular industry, that's the hype of the industry kind of driving the market, right? Rather than value delivery. That said, when you look at all the companies who are now leveraging AI to get better on software, that's all there. And not to mention the long-term investment. Once we get down to robotics and stuff like that these could be real turnarounds for lots of areas of the atom space in the economy.
Yeah, and here's kind of the circular logic of money that's going on in the industry, where it's like
Okay.
everybody's like buying and selling from each other, and all the money is just kind of like swishing around. It's hard to fully explain it if you're just listening to the podcast, but you kind of have NVIDIA sitting there in the center of it with $4.5 trillion. But then all these arrows are essentially like the hardware, software, investment, venture capital needs that are going on in the AI sphere. And you can kind of see who the major players are. NVIDIA being the big piece of the Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Jamal Harris.
Right.
Microsoft sitting on the side, OpenAI, AMD, Oracle sitting here, and those are like, chip manufacturing, all these things, and kind of all the money that's just like sloshing around in this space right now.
Wow.
Especially because I don't know what NVIDIA just as a stock, just like the company's valuation has increased over the last couple of years, just exponentially.
Oh, so
it's
huge.
one of the craziest
The only
stocks.
thing you knew NVIDIA for was for video game graphics
and
cards.
Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, and Bitcoin mining.
Those
and
two were the
and then
things.
it's like, now it's just taking off.
Well,
like
there was
crazy.
a chip shortage, and everybody was complaining about crypto mining, like Bitcoin mining in particular, because of the chip shortage. Because it was making gamers were getting upset about it because the chips were, graphics cards got really expensive. But now it's just because of this, it's just even crazier. Right.
So when you look at this kind of overinvestment, if that's indeed what we're seeing, we don't actually know this is overinvestment yet. You
don't know till it happens.
Right. Well, and you don't know what the right number is. What's the right amount of money to spend on AI? Right. How do you know?
Well, and it's also because I would expect, we're both very pro AI. We're very pro on the future of AI. What AI is going to do is it's going to lift everything else up with it too. You should expect growth in other stocks due to AI with things being more productive, stronger shareholder value. All these things should be coming from AI.
Well, and I would expect a lag, right? This is actually true for email, right? It was like a decade after the introduction of email before, companies really got good at it showing up in their actual bottom line of becoming more efficient, right? It was probably immediate in a sense because you didn't have to send physical letters, but before you knew it, there was a lot of lag in the indicators where it was really feeding into GDP. The internet itself wasn't a net win for a long time, all the way throughout the 90s. Even during the dot-com bubble, there wasn't a lot of obvious this is really making the physical space better, other than delivery, right? And
crypto's that way.
Yeah.
We're seeing it now. This year is kind of the year where the adoption is actually beginning to happen, and government policy and the regulatory structure kind of coming in around it that's solidifying it. But Bitcoin's been around since 2008.
Right.
right. So we're talking 17 years.
Yeah. So you would anticipate some amount of overextension and then dial back as we're trying to find the right amount of investment. Remember, the marketplace and investment of this kind is a discovery mechanism where there is no objectively right number to invest in AI. We discover that amount with private capital taking bets on companies that then deploy things in the real world to make the world different, to solve, at the end of it, a consumer problem. Be that consumer problem being knowledge. I don't know about you, but I don't use search engines nearly as much as I used to. It's much more efficient to use.
I actually can't tell you the last time I used a search engine.
Yeah.
Because LLMs have become my search engine. And I use different LLMs for different things because I think certain ones are better than others. And I just kind of know, I'm going to go to Grok for this. I'm going to go for ChatGPT for this.
Right. So there's and then you can make the case that there's all kinds of ways in which that's not making the material space better, but it definitely is making lots of things more efficient in the intellectual space, in the mind space, in the ability for people to conceptualize information, pull together a thing, and then deploy it.
Well, and just using if you use Google or Brave or whatever, you just type something in there. I guess I do that to Brave every now and then. Is just the LLM model synthesizing the data of your search together is so useful. Instead of clicking through all these different links, it'll just be this link says this link says that, blah blah blah. Do you want more information? Go to it.
Right.
It's it's so useful, so efficient, so much better.
Right. So is it worth $4.5 trillion? Who knows? You don't know. You don't know what the actual demand is until you go out and discover it in the marketplace. And that's the thing. When people kind of look at this as this is some kind of malinvestment immediately, well, maybe. I mean, I definitely think there's signals to suggest that we are malinvesting, maybe going too far. Maybe, but once again, we're also incentivizing it. I know the trade war is a complicated phenomena, but at least one of the things is it makes investment in lots of things uncertain because you don't know what your inputs are going to be because the prices of things are fluctuating so wildly. If you're going to start a new company that's going to put cabinets into people's houses, you might use ChatGPT to fill out your contract with your subcontractor, and that's a lot more cost efficient than running a lawyer, but you're also not sure if you're going to enter the market at all because he might put a new tariff on cabinets that increase cabinets by 100%. Right? Like those, so like the function is much easier to invest in an AI company than it is in anything else right now, in part because of that. And so we should see, like, because of the uncertainty in the material space or the atom space, a lot more investment in software and things like that, because that's where all the certainty's at. You know, I mean, so like, there's
people,
lots of headwinds.
Everyone expects AI to go up because AI seems like the future. Like it's just a technology that's like, okay, now that it's here, it's so obvious that this is going to be an important technology for the future. So you kind of expect at least the baseline companies, like kind of the core of the industry, those are going to go up. But like, I think where a lot of the malinvestment of the AI boom is going to be in auxiliary companies, where it's like this company's trying to do this very specific thing, and that might be a really risky investment because that it may succeed or it may fail. You know, if it succeeds, it'll be, you know, you're probably going to be going to the moon. But if it fails, you're probably going to zero. Like there's going to be a lot of companies in the AI space that are that. But like NVIDIA, who's just building chips, that's like one of those safer ones where if you're just like a standard stock, you know, you're just putting your money into stocks for like retirement, that's one of the ones that you would probably expect, not financial advice, but probably expect to just like, oh, this is going to be a steady return because like they're the only ones in town doing this critical infrastructure for the future of our technology, which is like the center of two core industries that the United States is taking a focus on, which is, AI and crypto. Right.
So I think where most people are struggling with is beyond the initial like concerns that people have on everything we've mentioned so far. It's what is going to be the effect on the job market. So
yeah, we had some tweets from Matt Walsh here. So I like Matt Walsh. I like Matt.
I like Sagar.
Yeah. We like these people.
We like the people we criticize.
I like turtles.
Sometimes we disagree.
Bennett likes things too.
Bennett likes things too.
But
he likes football and turtles, guys.
Yeah. But Matt says people say that we shouldn't worry about AI wiping out jobs. The jobs will just change, they say. But the whole point of AI is that it removes the human component entirely. The jobs aren't going to change. They'll just disappear. AI will make like 10 people into trillionaires. Almost everyone else will be screwed. Mass unemployment, millions of workers rendered irrelevant all at once. That's what's going to happen. Not maybe, not might. It's going to happen, and it doesn't seem like we're doing anything at all to prepare for it. I think the other tweet kind of goes alongside it well. So
let's hold on that, and let's just go with the first one, and then we'll circle on that one because I imagine it's going to.
Sure.
Yeah. So the pithy response to this is always like, well, but technological change in the past does dislocate jobs, right, in the short run, but then it tends to work out as it actually creates new jobs. So, for example, you have a carriage, and then all of a sudden, you introduce the car, so the carriage is now the teamster that was running the carriage can no longer have a job. And all those horses, got to do something with all those horses, and we don't have to worry about all the horse dung, but now we got to worry about CO2 and smog, right? Like that's the usual debate in this space, right? And he's saying that AI is unique in that it completely takes those jobs away. So yeah, and then so this is the response from that guy on the bottom that he's retweeting from.
Don't you think people said the same thing about the automobile? Right. And then which is why I wanted to jump to this because it's kind of going into that is the typical kind of creative destruction response that exists there. So he immediately is going, no. AI is not at all like going from carriage to a car. Both the carriage and the car needed a human to drive them. It's just that with the car, the human is going faster and farther. AI removes the human from the equation completely. That's what people aren't grasping. This technology is different in kind from anything else that has ever existed or ever been invented in the entire history of humanity. Prior to this, we invented better tools for humans to use. Now the tool has its own brain and doesn't need humans at all.
So I have ChatGPT open right now. Or actually, I'll open Grok. No, actually, I want you to open Grok. Open Grok right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to run an experiment on Matt Walsh's premises here.
Okay.
Okay.
I opened
without doing anything to it.
I just opened Grok for a summary of the post, but I'll keep it.
But
so
you put
it's
an
recognized.
input in. Now you've ruined the experiment. You got to just open a new chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You just open the new chat, top right.
Okay. Let's go. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't need
That's
to
fine. It's going to be funny when I actually come around to it. All right, don't type anything in.
Okay.
Let's wait for the AI to do something.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, Matt Walsh told me that the AI is going to do something, Kyle. It's going to do something. It doesn't benefit humans.
I see your argument.
It can just go, Grok, go.
I see your argument.
Yeah, okay, all right. So my point being...
The AI, at least at this point, still needs its inputs.
Yes. Well, I mean, it will always need inputs, is my case, actually, because that is the function of action, is to do a thing. What spurs action is an actor doing something. So if you create an AI robot, so say, for example, like the worst case scenario, create an AI robot that has a physical body, right? It's Optimus, right? And it's just standing there, and it can go pursue its own desires. And that's why it's different, according to Matt Walsh. But I recommend we're not going to build that kind of robot because no one would buy it. Because you wouldn't buy a robot that can just do anything. You would buy a robot to solve needs that you have, right? So when the robot's not doing anything, I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't buy a robot that can just like go off and like go paint or something, like start playing the piano in my house when I don't want it to, right? I would be like, no, I want you to go do the dishes, robot.
Well,
Like, what is he envisioning?
You have a piano robot and you have a dish robot.
No. I'm talking about Optimus, a human-like robot that can sit there and do both of those things, right? Does that make sense? Right? It doesn't have... You have to imagine an AI completely unlike like the AI we have, number one. Number two, you have to envision an AI that is motivated like humans to go pursue ends that AI doesn't have, right? Because we program it to solve human needs. So what are you worried about? It's kind of like this, and especially when you look at the effects in the job market. And this is, I'm drawing on Robert Murphy's argument here, and you can check that out. He has a
Is
great
that
video on it.
underneath?
No. Well, yeah, he did. Yeah. So
he did a response to it.
Yeah.
If that's what you're referencing.
Humans who are 25-year-olds are stronger and more skilled than humans who are 18 years old. The 25-year-olds aren't just tools to be used by the 18-year-olds. The 25-year-olds have brains. Did I just prove 25-year-olds make it impossible for 18-year-olds to find a job? So now that looks pithy, but I think it's actually pretty profound, right? And to shorten it down, do 25-year-olds keep 18-year-olds from having a job? No, because 18-year-olds will do a job for less, even though they're less skilled, right? Now, let me flip it around real quick, and I'll go a little bit further than Robert Murphy does, or maybe change it a little bit. Do 18-year-olds keep 25-year-olds from having a job? No, because 25-year-olds are better at nearly everything than 18-year-olds, right? In both cases, we find roles for them in the economy to solve human needs based upon what they can produce and what they can do. When you have very affordable labor, such as an 18-year-old, even if it's really good at things, it's only going to be able to do things that we ask it to do, right? Because it's not going to go out and just be like, I'm going to go start a band. Because I wouldn't buy a robot that wants to just go start a band.
I might ask my robot to start a band.
You might ask it to, but do you see what I mean? Like that's the thing.
It's similar too, because like probably the natural progression, like let's just take the carriage to car example. And then another example recently was like taxis to Uber. Like that was a major kind of shock in the industry, and everybody's like, oh, the taxi medallions, all this stuff. Like that was a thing that was happening 10 years ago. And now the future is probably you'll have robo-taxis that are kind of like certain companies, but you're probably also going to have like an Uber for your own robo-taxi where you can send out your own car to do stuff. And you're going to be giving it the input to go make me money out there in the world. You're going to invest in your robo-car and then you send it out in the world. And so it's even better than just driving Uber yourself because you don't have to be the one driving.
Yes, exactly. So let me be clear. So when Tesla announced their new robo-taxi, I was like, I want to buy one of those to just have it go earn money for me. It's a capital investment.
Exactly.
When I do that, that is a human ordering a machine to go do a thing, thus creating value. It isn't, we don't have an economy so people work. We work to provide value for other people. That's what the economy is for. So the problem with this kind of like nationalist conservative argument about labor and the way that the national conservatives have kind of leaned into labor politics is they're kind of forgetting what the purpose of the economy is for. So when we introduce a lot of AI robotics into the economy at larger scales, yes, it'll have dislocations, but those dislocations will be in the service of providing services for other people at affordable prices, at cheaper prices, because the AI, the artificial intelligence, the robot will be able to work for cheaper. That will make the dollars go further for everyone else in the economy. That's what deflation is. That's why deflation is so great, is because what it does is it means you don't have to get a raise every single year to get better, to be able to buy more. Most of the most prosperous era of America throughout the early, the late 19th century into the early 20th century was some of the most prosperous we've ever been as a country in terms of our change of life, in terms of going from one thing to the next. And most of that area was defined by increased mechanization, increased automation, and increased amounts of technology that solve people's needs with deflating prices over that time. That's the opportunity that AI provides. It provides a lot of extra labor to drive down the cost of labor-intensive things to make things more affordable for everyday people. That's the promise. Will it deliver that? You never know. The world is a complex place, but that is what the economics tells us.
Another area on this is I saw an interesting kind of back and forth, I guess, with David Sachs, who is the AI and crypto czar of the Trump administration. And Jack Clark, who is a co-founder of Anthropic, he had put out here's an article from Quartz saying tensions are brewing between Anthropic and the White House over AI regulation. But Jack Clark put out a Substack where he's the co-founder of Anthropic, which makes Claude. Right.
Oh, okay.
One of the big LLMs here that we're talking about.
And he's a big AI safety guy.
AI safety guy talking about, there's going to be all these challenges and all this stuff, all kind of like the typical arguments. And David Sachs essentially said that Anthropic is running a sophisticated regulatory capture strategy based on fear-mongering. It is principally responsible for the state regulatory frenzy that is damaging the startup ecosystem.
Ooh, savage.
So coming directly from and Jack Clark and Anthropic has been, of all the AI giants, they've been the most critical of the Trump administration, where all the other AI companies are coming in and like working with Trump. You have Anthropic that's kind of not.
Were they one of the two AI companies that was going to be the monopoly under the Biden regime, you think? You think that's who they had in mind?
I think so.
Do you remember? So like what I'm referencing is, in case you weren't tracking, is the Mark Andreessen said he had a meeting with the Biden administration where they said, oh, AI is like nuclear power. What we're going to do is we're going to like select like 2 or 3 companies, and those will be the only AI companies, and no one else will be able to do it.
So
it's too dangerous.
I actually have another tweet that David put this out like right as we were coming in for the podcast. And one of the things, he put out a bunch of stuff on Anthropic, but one of the things in here, just interestingly, according to your point right there, is Anthropic hired senior Biden AI staffers to work in its government affairs department, where they continue to lobby for the old Biden AI agenda.
Interesting.
Which is
maybe they were.
Which is worth noting.
I think it might have been what they had in mind.
But there is.
They picked the wrong horse, bro.
There is. Seriously. Somehow Sam Altman just like. Whoop,
yeah. How did he do that?
He was on one and he just jumped over to the other. No problem. Because like the other one of those two was OpenAI. I'm pretty sure.
And probably Meta too.
I'm pretty sure.
And then Mark Zuckerberg's done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, he's super based now. What did they say?
Super right wing.
Yeah, right.
American flag on the while surfing kind of thing. UFC, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's one of the things, because like just when you study politics enough, you see these types of things in like all industries where there's like oftentimes the biggest fear mongers are the ones that benefit from the regulatory capture. And you're seeing that from the AI safety folks. Yeah. Like I think David Sachs is probably right on this. And he's saying that it's very sophisticated. How sophisticated it is, I don't know. But I wonder how many of those kind of negative AI stories are planted in order to be like, yes, government, we must regulate, and we will make sure that we have all the proper channels to make sure that our AI regulated is correct. But then it's like, then we're the big dogs. We're the only people here, because it just becomes effectively AI is already kind of difficult to get into if you're a small player because of the data center issue, right? At least in the current structure. That probably gets better over time.
Right.
But
more you increase compute and make it a market compute system, the more you have opportunities for new entries. But we do get some really interesting entries internationally and then nationally too. Joe sent me a new one actually that was pretty interesting that I played around this week. But I want to note that is one of the reasons the explanatory power of philosophy and economics is its ability to apply to general phenomena, social phenomena, regardless of the details, right? So that, what you just described, Kyle, is the bootlegger and Baptist thing, right? It's just you've made the bootlegger and the Baptist into one person, right? Rent seeking is where the bootlegger, the person who's arguing for who benefits from prohibition, and the Baptist, the one who's arguing for prohibition, become one person and say, "Oh well, we're the only ones who can be trusted to do this thing." And it's interesting. Another thing that's interesting to me, Kyle, is that the degree to which this is happening so quickly in AI, right? Usually, rent seeking and regulatory capture is a thing that happens after a long time. Like usually startups are usually kind of much more cordial with their opponents and competitors and not trying to shut them out immediately, right? It's a damning thing for our current culture to have AI so quickly move into the space of trying to rent seek from government like that.
Well, that's the thing. Like probably the biggest con of AI growing so quickly is that change is often very difficult for people to adapt to very quickly too. So like just like all of our systems, how we handle this stuff, just like now that there's so quickly these rent seekers coming in, like just like people's psyches with the change and with all the new LLMs and everything that they're using, and like everybody's kind of got their own personal assistants now. Like, you know, just the change factor I think is like breaking a lot of brains too in this time. That's maybe one of the most damaging things of AI is like we're kind of figuring out how to use this thing because it is like this new phenomenon that we're trying to, you know, get better at understanding because it's not going away.
Right. I mean, that's true for every new technology. When it comes in, it's always very like, whoa,
but it's
scary,
so fast right now.
But it's so fast. Yeah, I agree with the rate of change thing is a major phenomenon for it.
And I don't think it should slow down.
No.
You know, but like that's also the thing too, where it's just like it's I think hard for society to keep up with the rate of change, but also it's so useful for society that I don't think it's just like I don't think we should put like rails on it to make it slow down necessarily. Now, a lot of the like AI freak out panic stuff, they'll be like, no, we have to slow it down. We have to nuke the data centers. You know, like there's a lot of that stuff.
It wasn't nuke. It was a Hellfire missile.
Yeah,
like on data centers that were not operating under the safety regime.
But even just like people in my life are like very afraid of the AI stuff. Like you know, like there's a very clear distinction of like there's the people that use AI all the time, and then there's like people that are like,
fucking
I'm not touching that thing right now. Shut up! Exactly. Like,
are you scared, Bennett? Does the AI scare you?
It's like it's taking my
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
Exactly. No, I don't know about that.
Isn't that's just like the Camus absurdism right there? It's just like nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen. Like that's kind of how I'm living my life with this change. It's just like you got to embrace the new. Like with all change, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Like. I think it would be disingenuous to say that there's not going to be job disruption that happens. Like there's going to be job disruption in any major shift that occurs. But like there's pros and cons to every decision and everything that occurs.
And I actually put into Discord, I forgot to actually add it to the notes. I actually asked Rock about what it thought the key employment impacts of AI would be by sector. And it basically said, right now, as of so far.
Wait,
right?
You're believing Grok?
Yeah. So
You're
far,
believing the AI?
Yeah. Using Forbes.
You're full of shit today.
Information technology, finance and banking, customer service and sales, healthcare and life sciences, legal services, media content creation.
We're fucked.
Manufacturing and operations, and administrative and clerical work. And now a lot of these aren't like completely zeroing out all the employees in this, but it is meaning a tighter labor market as people within those industries become more efficient at what they do and are able to satisfy more consumer demands, right? And do more. So someone might have gone to a lawyer to get some contract off the ground for a B2B independent contractor contract that was really important to them, but now they might just draft it in ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. You know, and so that means sometimes diverted services altogether. But you know, I when I look at that list and I look at what people are using it for, what I don't see as a disaster for mankind. What I see is people either becoming more efficient or people not performing within the job market because they don't make the adaptation to be able to do more. Right? I mean, that to me is all win, right? Because that means more people having their problem solved on the ground.
On the content creation side, have you seen like all the new Sora 2 videos?
Yeah.
Sora 2 coming out was the first time in like the AI video and everything where I'm like, wow, this is like the first time where it's becoming hard to tell that it's AI.
Yeah,
like,
other than it's Martin Luther King fighting Lincoln in a boxing match, or something like that.
well,
Something absurd.
that's easy. I don't know. Maybe that's real. I don't know. But like, I saw a lot of people were making videos of like this person stealing things from a store and CCTV footage. Like that's the stuff where there's going to be a lot of growing pains that exist. And that's actually the thing where crypto solves that. Like it's the cryptographic verification that solves those types of problems of like deep fake videos that are occurring, because all of those will be able to be
stamped,
on chain. And that's why I think crypto is coming up with AI so much, is like, it's not just the financial rail stuff where we're seeing with like the stable coins and kind of the integration into PayPal and all this stuff that's happening. It's also just like the blockchain verification side, which helps us verify what's real and what's not because of the rise of AI.
Which is not a case that we originally were thinking about when it comes to property rights on the internet that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency would be able to establish, but is now kind of becoming the potential route.
It's another use. Yeah, like in 2008, that's not what the Satoshi white paper was about with
right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
like,
right.
The global finance system is collapsing. Like that's what it was about. But now it's like, we also need to verify fake videos on the internet. Like that's another use case that's come up out of it.
And that will create more jobs and more opportunities for people to create, a division of labor to create value for each other, because there'll be a market for real stuff and it'll be a market for whatever makes me laugh, right? And each one of those things should be, allow people to discover the right way to balance those things out and to make money off of it. And that's a good thing. That's what the free market economy is based on. And it's so frustrating to see folks like Matt Walsh go so far off into the panic that kind of abandon the foundational economic reasoning that they would apply to any other situation like that.
Yeah, AI does that where it breaks people's like typical economic models for some reason. Yeah. And like, I do sympathize with the argument where like, in a sense, the argument of, this is displacing humans, unlike the way that the horse and buggy to the car was going, because like, there's still a human factor that exists there. But like, it's kind of like you said, is there's still humans needing to do the inputs.
Not just the inputs, but it's also the function of the thing. The function of it's the service the technology gives you. That service is a human, and that continues with AI. And if I fail to see one in which it doesn't, you have to imagine AI doing things for no reason at all, or doing things just for the AI's sake, which is isn't a thing that we can see them doing, because why would you economize on that? Because you have to spend money to build the AI to go do it. So if you just have an AI just doing random things, then you can't make any money doing that. So you have to imagine that in order to get the disaster. And second, when you're bringing in the robotics, you're now in the atom space, right? Scales much slower, moves much slower. It's more difficult to build lots of things. We see Teslas on the road all the time now, right? 20 years ago, that did not happen at all, right? Even 10 years ago, we didn't see them in Montana much, and you saw them every now and then. You like in California, you'd see a couple. You're like, wow, there's a lot of Teslas down here. So like, I can't. You have to imagine that they can go from scale in the atom space the same way they have in the digital space, and that doesn't seem reasonable to me. And therefore, you don't have the mass unemployment problem, because you probably have this slowly rolling out over more and more robotic workforce goes into the general workforce area and starts to produce services. But even when they're doing that for investor who is trying to go do something, right? Who is buying a robot so they can go do something with that robot, whether that in their household or as a market opportunity. Right. So if you have your AI robot, like Optimist landscaping crew, and you show up at the spot, you unhook them, you send them out, and then you tell them what to do, and they go out and they do the landscaping. If that's the result that we're talking about here, the landscaping still gets done for a human. The robots are still employed and run and maintenance by a human. What's the difference between that and actually a human holding a rake? Well, the human
using a lawnmower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is like an upgrade that's like an upgrade from going from like scythes to lawnmowers to AI landscapers.
Yeah, right.
Like robotic landscapers.
Right. I mean, but it's that same classic. Like and this is the old Milton Friedman story. He's in China. He's doing some economic consulting in China for their pivot to the market, and he sees a bunch of people, digging with a shovel. He's like, why aren't you using heavy machinery? He's like, well, we would employ less people. He said, why don't you use spoons?
Yeah, you would employ way more people if you use spoons.
Right. That's not the purpose of the economy. The purpose of the economy is to solve problems. problems.
One other factor, maybe a final thought is I do remember listening to Sam Altman has done a few interviews recently. One being with Tucker, which was interesting, just because it was kind of like, "Did you kill your employee?" The thing was in there.
I didn't get to watch it. That sounds really good.
It was weird and awkward. Yeah. But also, he did one with Theo Von where he was just like randomly pontificating about things.
Yeah.
And he was hypothesizing the idea that eventually tokens with LLMs are going to act as currencies in themselves, and it's going to be kind of like a UBI, where like you're using this this LLM, and like the compute is going to be just going to, like, there's always going to be, you get the higher paid structures for paying more or investing in the company, et cetera, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But then also like on the free level with the compute, like those tokens are essentially going to be acting as might act as currencies where you'll be able to trade with each other, especially as everything becomes more blockchain integrated.
Yeah. So rather than using ChatGPT, I'd trade out my compute the same way they do.
It kind of reminds me
cell
of
phone
like,
minutes in Africa.
Exactly. It was kind of reminding me of, back in because Africa, all these African countries have all these, financial woes and financial problems. In order to get around terrible currency conditions and just hyperinflationary environments, people resorted to trading cell phone minutes. And like the cell phone companies themselves built the tools for that to be way more of like just like a natural currency, like in the same way that you kind of like Venmo each other. And it kind of reminds me of that. I almost feel like that might be where like
interesting.
And Sam Altman was just like randomly pontificating on that. I was just like, okay. Because he was asked about UBI, and he's like, if there's to be a UBI model, I think it would be something like this. And you're just like, whoa, that's interesting.
Because it's free.
And you're just getting like airdropped your
from
LLM tokens from the thing. And so you can trade, stockpile, et cetera, and use them in a sense of
that's wild.
Kind of like, but that also goes into like everybody pontificating about like the post scarcity world and things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Weird.
There's no such thing as post scarcity world.
Weird.
I think we ended off on this, Kyle. What's your prediction for the mass AI deployment? Like, assuming Optimus takes off, robo taxis, like what does that world look like to you? I have my answer, but I want to hear yours.
I think there's pros and cons that are going to come with it. I think there's going to be more pros than cons. I think that these things, like, there's also like, there's going to be a weaponization side. Like, this is kind of like a new weapon, but I honestly look at it kind of like guns, where it's almost like a Second Amendment right, where like this is an arms thing, and I think everybody should have the right to their robo AI stuff.
Clanker rights.
In a lot of ways, it's a robot, or it's a tool that is like a weapon, but like people are also going to use it for bad, and people are going to program their robots to do bad things and stuff like that. And there's going to be this kind of like back and forth arms race that's going to have pros and cons going through it. Do I think it's going to be a Terminator style event? No, at least not in the near term. Could it get there? Maybe. I don't know. We have to see how things progress. But I think that a lot of the fight is over the direction these things take. Like the stuff is coming, but you're kind of fighting for the direction that the stuff takes, and that's kind of the all. It's sort of like in the same way crypto. Everybody's worried about CBDCs. That's enabled and possible with blockchain technology. But like that's not the only use case of blockchain technology. Right. Like there's also all these useful benefit, rails for money and like the verification stuff. Like that's also part and parcel. So you're like fighting for what you want with the technology. Right.
That totally checks. That totally makes sense. And I think if there is a Terminator scenario, it's because the government did it. Right. I don't see a private company doing that. Not only because of my faith and like the sensibility of like the incompetence of government and the sensibility of regular people, but also because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like in terms of automating war machines are really scary and dangerous, and we should be concerned about that, especially when it comes to law enforcement, domestic policy, but also in our international relations. We don't want incidents happening because of automated weapon systems too greatly. We want a human check and a human moral system as tightly as we can. But that said, that could be the opposite direction. We could see a scenario where the laws of war are less bendable because there's AI oversight to every soldier, and therefore less atrocities that can happen in war.
Also, military action just on the war side front probably become much more specific. Right? Like where instead of just kind of bombing weddings at random and stuff like that, because of like your actual targeted strikes on a warfare thing probably become less civilian casualties.
Possibly.
Actually.
Yeah, because
Like,
you have better ability to see who's there. Thank you, Palantir. No.
Well, actually, they're allowing the robots to speak to each other, right?
Oh, that's a whole nother can of worms that people won't like your opinion on. Okay, so all right, so here's my prediction for the AI domestic market. So I think there's going to be a tight labor market for entry jobs without physical needs. Right, that's where we're at. Right, I mean, right now, if you are a very famous author, AI doesn't hurt you. But if you're trying to become one, there's a lot of AI slop out there that you can now have to compete with. Totally understand that. I think there's the better short-term market for skilled manual labor until robotics catch up. But even then, it's going to be required because you have to interface with people in manual labor. People forget about this, but when you're building a house, you actually have to deal with a client, and there's going to be a range of that. But we're going to see, but that also means a lot more houses being built because you have a much larger workforce that can build them cheaper. Labor is one of the number one inputs to almost all of our most expensive things that we need and buy when it comes to the economy. So that will mean downward pressure on that. I see more entrepreneurship in labor-intensive industry. Think about it. If you can buy an Optimus robot for $40,000 and then run that for 10, 20 years, I don't know how long it'll last, but just throw out numbers right there, whatever the number is. Even 5 years, you can now deploy that to solve many of your problems domestically and economically much more affordably. It's much cheaper than a maid. It's much cheaper than an employee for a lot of different things. And we're going to see a massive increase in the production possibility frontier to bump that outward and therefore have more material problems solved. Be it you're picking up the laundry to doing the dishes to, that job that you need outside, building a fence or whatever. So we could see, and with that, we could see more self-reliance for people who have the ability to buy those things. As prices decline, more people will have that capacity to buy it because your dollar will go further. That's how prices work. And I want to put this to the Matt Walsh kind of skeptics out there. If AI cures cancer, but it puts all the cancer researchers out of a job, was it worth it? Think about that for a minute. That's kind of his argument, right? But what about the jobs? Well, what about the things that it solves?
Yeah, that's where I'm much more of the, again, there's pros and cons to everything. It's going to be disruptive for some people, obviously. I don't think that when people say that's not the case, no, that's the case. It's going to happen.
Kind of meant that up front, right?
Yeah, but the solves and the rate at which we solve problems is going to be so much better than it was before. And that in itself, to me, is worth the cons of short-term chaos in labor markets. Yeah. Because the labor markets will fix themselves over time because just basic supply and demand economic principles. As long as governments aren't doing something to get in the way of that or something, because that could happen.
Always have.
That's the problem is restrictions usually from a regulatory standpoint are the things that will exasperate those problems further because of poor calculations and slow to move on and not having the correct knowledge in order to know where the market's going.
Or making it so you can't build the energy market so that you can actually have the AI, so then you run into these cost problems. Yeah, absolutely. And then even with AGI, it still makes sense to employ people for the same reason that absolute advantage works in Bastiat's case, right? So if you have an AI that can do literally everything better, for the same reason that a country trades with a country that can't do something, is absolutely better than the other country at everything, it still saves time by having a division of labor. You won't have infinite deployment of robots everywhere all at once. You're going to have a lot of these things come in over time, and there's going to be dislocations over time, but then there's going to be the opportunity for the Star Trek vision of our world, not the Blade Runner vision of our world or the Terminator vision of our world. That Star Trek vision is very much of reality, of possibility, because what we can do is solve all those problems to make building things in atom space much more cheaper and therefore much more abundant.
Also, just I often kind of think that people are lying about their AI positions. I think just on net, and the market's going to show this, that when there's tools that help you do things better in your own life, all this stuff, all this like ideological Twitter virtue signaling that exists, like that just goes out the window because people are like, well, I'm going to buy the thing.
Yeah, right.
Like that's that's how these things always go down. Like you can virtue signal about the labor markets all you want, but like at the end of the day, your dollars are going to be buying the thing that makes your life better and cuts the annoying bullshit minutia out of your life.
Yes.
Like you're going to be doing that, especially when you have like a bunch of money. Like you're going to be doing that.
Well, even if we can make it so that it's so abundant that even the poorest person can afford to have an AI robot.
Well,
that's in their life. The
smartphone is that example. Like now, you pretty much have to have a smartphone to operate in the world, and at first they were very expensive, but now it's just like everybody has one. And it's just a standard thing that anybody that exists in society has and operates with, and it makes everybody's life better. It has its cons. Like there's cons that exist with being super tied into like your social media all the time. But like AI, there's pros and cons, and we take the cons, and hopefully you can fix the cons of your own life in order to take the upside of the new technology.
And that's up to adults pursuing wisdom over like adults just operating on the dopamine cycle. Right. And that's exactly the same thing with AI. And like from the AI porn thing to the AI girlfriend robot thing to all that stuff is like up to the individual. And this is the perennial problem. We're always in this place. It's up to the individual to pursue the highest and best use for their life. No one else you can't determine that for somebody else. You can't, no matter how much you lean into whatever vision you have of the good life, you can't simply just determine for someone else what their aims are or what they should be and have them actually implement it. They have to decide it for themselves. So AI, will it be a challenge for us to actually lean into our best character? Yes. That is something that people should step up to do. And I think people will if we give them an opportunity to.
I agree.
All right. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. Leave a review on Spotify.
Go to Discord.
Tell us, are you afraid of the AI overlords coming in? Why are we wrong about it? Because right now I'm kind of bullish on it.
The end is near! We are all gonna die!
That's Bennett's opinion for you. See ya.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com.